When you're using configurations to automatically construct your application through dependency injection and Spring, there are a number of annotations that Spring provides that vastly simplify your life and work when creating these configurations. So let's assume that we have a configuration, again, in our application class, and we have annotated this with @configuration. Now we could go and think of every different component in our application and define an individual method that's annotated with @bean to say, here is how you go and construct that particular component. Here's the interface as the return type, and here's the actual implementation of that interface that I want you to use when it's referenced. However, it's a lot of work, particularly if there's only a single implementation of an interface, or you have your implementations divided up in some nice way, for example, where all of the implementations that are related in some way all live in the same package. And wouldn't it be nice if you could tell Spring to automatically go and find all of the implementations of the various interfaces and automatically associate those implementations with the interfaces so that wherever you've auto-wired that interface in, it will use the implementation that it's discovered. The way that you do that in Spring is you can say @component scan, and you can provide it a series of package names, Java package names, or prefixes to Java package names. So we could have com.mobile. And Spring is automatically going to go and scan that package, find all of the interfaces, look at any annotations on any of the interfaces or any of the classes in that package as well, and then based on what it discovers, it will automatically decide, for example, if it finds an interface for something that is auto-wired throughout your application, and then it finds an implementer of that interface, it will automatically associate that implementer with that interface, and then wherever there is an auto-wired for that interface, it will take the implementer and insert it. This, of course, is assuming that there's a one-to-one mapping based on the component scanned packages. So if it scans this package and there are multiple implementations of an interface, it can't automatically decide which one should go when into a particular object when it's being auto-wired. Instead, this is good for when you have either exactly one implementation of an interface or you've divided up your implementations into packages in some way so that you can component scan one package that will have all of the implementations but only a single implementation of each interface and automatically allow Spring to figure out which one should go where. Another important annotation to know about is the annotation that tells Spring to go and look for all of the auto-wired annotations and actually go and fill them in. If you don't add this particular annotation to your configuration, Spring won't go and look for those auto-wired annotations. So the annotation that we need to add to our configuration is @enable auto configuration. And what this tells Spring to do is go look for the @auto-wired annotations, and wherever you find one of them, automatically fill it in with an appropriate value. So commonly you see @enable auto configuration and @component scan used together. So you'll automatically go and find a particular set of implementations that you want to use that you've defined in some package, and then you will automatically enable auto configuration through @enable auto configuration so that Spring will go and look for all the auto-wires and fill them in. And using these two, you can simplify your configuration class because you don't have to go and explicitly define a bean with an @bean and then a method to retrieve the bean for every single component in your application. You can simply allow Spring to discover them and then to automatically auto-wire them for you without going to all of the work to defining each one individually or doing anything else. Now, there is a slight downside to this. The downside is that going and actually doing something like automatically scanning all of the classes in a particular package and all of the sub-packages off of this. So if this is com.mobile and you have com.mobile.data as a package and com.mobile.http as a package, all of those sub-packages will be scanned as well. So if you have lots and lots of classes on your class path and all in the sub-packages, it can take a while at launch time to actually go and scan them all, read all of the auto-wired instances, and configure everything. But the important thing to note is this is only when you're starting up your application. So as long as you're running in an environment where you're starting your application up very infrequently, which is the case in most environments, this isn't a big deal. There actually are a subset of cloud environments where the cloud service provider may shut your application down when it's not receiving enough requests. And these are things like Google App Engine. And in those cases, if you do this, it can be a performance hit to your application in Google App Engine. And there's lots of information on the web about the impact of auto configuration and component scanning on applications on Google App Engine. So just be aware that this can simplify your life, but at the same time, it can also create problems from a performance perspective if you are running on specific providers and they are continually restarting your application over and over. But in most cases, this is not a performance hit that we care about.